Chinese think it's great. Most Chinese we talk to, they've been there for months, they think it's great.
Well, there are some that really want sons too that have daughters, and it's a problem.
No, I agree.
But that gets back to culture. It would remind you of having a daughter in the States, she could be president too. But in China, if you got a daughter, you're supposed to mind your feet, and let say yes, sir. Which, no guys not agree.
Well, then he goes into a little bit the optimum population trust, which is an environmental think tank organized, and the debate was held in London. I don't have the year written down, but I think it was in the late 90s or early, I think it was late 90s. And the debate highlighted the fact that the world is being threatened by both the population bomb and the consumption bomb. And I like that the book integrates all the things that we talk about in this group, and the fact that the wealthy nations are so much more responsible for carbon emissions, but at the same time, cutting carbon.
We have not cut population growth. It's really amazing the way society changes when you get more political. Actually, most really industrial countries get below, they can't replace the workers. So unfortunately, I would like to think that we get it out of some kind of conscience, but it seems to be a cultural shift, if you know what I mean. If you know what I mean, I don't know if you know what I mean. Okay. So I don't think we get, never mind.
Well, we're just going to have a report right now.
Yeah, I'm just throwing my 2 cents in. Dick knows, I always throw my 2 cents in, I can't keep my mouth shut. I love you.
So even
I didn't know we were in that part.
with the world fertility rate declining, we're likely to have 2 billion people by mid-century. And at that point, the total population, I mean, with no new additives to the formula that we're on now, but at that point, population will begin to decline. And this goes back to his calculations that the Earth could support 2 billion people, but at this point, each additional person ratchets down everyone else's carbon ration. So, it's a discussion that needs to be held, but it's a discussion that I find a lot of people don't want to have. And even in the United Nations, they seldom will talk about population. People are always offended. You're offending someone when you talk about population.
The same thing in the United States, and liberals are very susceptible to turning off the conversation because you soon get into the immigration question. If you're going to really talk about population, we need replacements. I mean, it's there, and you got it wrong.
We don't have enough replacements to do the dirty work. You got to have the lawnmower and shit picked up. Excuse me.
So then this is related to that population trust debate that was held in England, and one of the participants was Aubrey. And if the future of the human race depends on tackling population increase head on, it must be asked if it's feasible. I think if we pussyfoot around the word coercion, says Aubrey, let's remember that for centuries, governments and churches have been coercing people into having more children.
Disease more needs to help take care of that. What does more wrong?
Basically more of the same. Everything as I said.
I'm just making a suggestion.
Go ahead. By the bias, I am on the board of Aaron Bates, and I had seen the book on John Stewart and Ed and so his countdown is fabulous. I'm so glad finally somebody is talking about the topic. A lot more the same, a lot of stupid political decisions, a lot of stupid engineering, technology decisions made. In my head, he goes over Libya, Niger, Pakistan, India, Iran. Iran came up with a good plan. They were well cited for that. Japan came up with a kind of a different problem, a reverse problem. Way too many elderly. not enough young people. They have a birth rate that is below replacement. Young people are seeing, like, you know, and I think part of it, he doesn't mention this, but I think part of the internet's part of it. You're seeing how other people live. And
No,
that
actually, it was
desire
before
to
what was before the internet? It's only the internet.
No, I realize that, but I mean, now, but
Let's
he
just,
mention it.
let Linda do
Okay,
her
fine.
presentation, and we will have discussion afterwards.
Okay.
But anyway, there aren't enough people to take care of the elderly people. They have a sort of a reverse problem, and he makes us look at the other side of the coin as well. Then there's the state of Kerala in India. I always use that one. Look at this, when you give women reproductive rights and when you give women education. Look what happens, you raise the standards.
Yes.
Then it makes you start to think, wait a minute, we want everybody to be happy and healthy. But raising the standard for everyone on this planet can be a major problem. Energy. It's just a consumption.
No, actually,
of
greed
it.
is the problem. I hate to interject with
Excuse
greed.
me,
You've got
I'm
plenty of
sorry,
resources.
please.
No, I won't.
I'm sorry, you're going to.
I will go have a cigarette until we have
Please do.
discussion.
Well,
Please do.
finish.
Sorry, I have to speak. Most people are saying stuff I don't agree with. Hey, Aubrey, how you doing? Shooting some shit out.
Just, I was saying, somebody brings up
Lock the door.
and I'm so glad that you brought it up. The interdependence of species. He brings that up. I love that. Species diversification and how valuable it is to all of us, human or non-human. GMOs, yes, we want lots more food production, but then we get into genetically modified stuff, and maybe that's not really what we want. The amount of energy required to raise protein sources. I like prime rib, but I'm driving a Prius because I want to balance all that out. You know? Monetary systems, steady state of economics. Maybe we can do something with the currency. Maybe we can change the dynamic as far as banks versus government, putting people first, putting 100% of human needs first rather than profit. He brings up great questions. Excess consumerism. I'm possibly guilty of that. Greed, human greed. Some of it is serious greed. Some of it is just human to human greed. You have more cookies than I have. I want more cookies. It's very simple. He brings out the human element. Mandatory versus natural controls. What works, what doesn't. We're going to have to nature's going to make a decision, guys. There's nothing we do about it. He talks about mixing cultures for economic reasons. I think he quotes German Chancellor Angela Merkel. It's not always working out. And I have friends in the European Union, and they tell me that it's become a cultural, religious, and economic problem in Germany because they invited over Turks and people from Tunisia to do a lot of the lower level work because they were reducing their birth, they were reducing their rates of birth, and therefore their standards were going up. Now they have a problem with nobody really wanting to do the low level stuff. So we have to think of this in political terms as well. And then the role and the value of women. I'm sorry, that's my big issue. I can't say much about that. Some great highlights. He writes without not being preachy on his little yet. Loaded with information, but not overly statistics laden. He sneaks them in there in the middle of the sentence, but it's not a heavy, dull book. If you haven't read it, it's 5 bazillion pages. I wasn't going to read it, and I did, and I'm so glad I did. It's a fast read. But the statistics are really, really good. It's well researched, it's well documented, and the best part of all is what Ed mentioned. He doesn't say these people are crazy or doing that. He lets them speak in their own words. This is why we do it. We do it to have heirs. We do it because Allah or Yahweh or God or whoever the person is going to make things right. There's a lot of hope in a lot of what they say. There were some highlights. Chapter 15, the one on safe sex, I read that one twice, loved it. Touting the message of family planning and safe sex everywhere. Wonderful uses for condoms, I never even thought of. I guess we're the largest distributor of condoms on the planet, and I'm sending that part of the book to our folks in the heartland up there. And great stats about what, about $8 billion would solve a problem with women in underdeveloped nations. And then he tells us that we spend that kind of money every month in Iraq and Afghanistan from 2001 to 2011. That, he says things that put it on a perspective we can all grasp, because it's difficult for us to grasp billions and trillions and infinity. Numbers have anything to do with infinity. Who cares how to be around? Yeah, in a way you will, because you're progeny. And the thing that bothered me the most, and Ed brought it up, in 2008, they met in Sweden, all these scientists from all over the world, and they identified the 9 boundaries a lot of us are familiar with. What are the tipping points? What are the places we may not go as far as carbon and everything else? And the one thing they left out was human. That's it. That's all. I didn't need to step on any of that.
Why don't we leave it out? Why don't we leave comprehension out all the time?
Discussion
So
now?
much knowledge.
Because I think a lot of these,
Is there a discussion happening, or is it still a presentation?
you don't need to.
We're
But
discussing.
it's a very.
Give them the left.
Well, he explained
Okay,
he has a chapter.
maybe I haven't got the right
How does all this happen? It's chapter 3, body counts, paradox of food, and the population increase. And so it's a lot of different reasons. It's not just chapter 3. Many of the chapters,
Yeah.
right, discuss this. How did we get where we are today? Vaccine is very important in chapter 3, and as early as the advances in general.
Yeah.
Why don't we talk about it, though? Why don't we talk about it?
Why is it just the third grade?
Yeah, why is it so touchy to talk about population?
Well, Mr. Brown included it. Remember, it was his fourth leg in the table.
He's controversial,
So I appreciate
partly for
that.
that reason.
Well, the conservatives don't like it. I mean, under Reagan, they cut out family planning, you know.
That
for
doesn't answer the question.
international-
Liberals don't like it either. If you bring it up, it becomes personal.
Why is that?
Population.
I
If you
mean-
say to somebody, you have 4 children, don't you think that's wrong? Not
Oh,
that you
freedom.
that one, but if you bring up the idea it's fine to discuss like Mr. Brown does in an academic or abstract. Everybody loves that. But when you say, stop having children, then people get offended.
It's true.
Well, of course, yeah, because it's a personal decision that
Right.
you haven't validated.
So that's the
their
problem.
personal-
That's the problem.
Yeah, I think it impinges on religion, and it also impinges on the immigration issue.
And then people's inherent belief in their personal right to propagate as much as they want, no matter what other beliefs they held, and no matter what they say in terms of saving the world.
But look at us, in 2 minutes, we listed powerful reasons why this was suppressed for the last decade.
He gives a lot of it, but he doesn't jump on anything really in a preaching kind of way, but he puts the hints out. I wouldn't feel it, but it's about a personal decision. Then we're talking about my personal freedom. I can carry a gun and I can hide.
I'm not just talking about those people. I'm talking about hippy-dippy, buying that baby pots on the square, all the BPA-free plastic and all the...
Libertarians.
No, I'm talking
And
about
also,
hard, hippy-dippy liberals with 4 or 5 kids.
And when you're talking about
It's the trend now. There's 100 parenting magazines out there.
And the media
And
is
blogs and stores dedicated just to baby things. There's a big push in our country somehow for kids, for people to have kids.
I don't think the birth rate's over 2 per woman in the college. 2.1.
Well, every place is-
It's still below the class.
But there is a competition, there are movements within the Orthodox part of, like Christianity, equivocal movement. We want to have a 6, 8, 10, 12, 18, if we can have, because they know that the Muslim and the Orthodox Jewish people that are not them are doing it too, and they want to, literally outnumber them, because here's always the dominion theory, we take over the world, so religion is a big issue. I think
We're having a discussion.
Okay, good. Good.
we have to also, to mediate a little bit, because we've got, I've got my doctor's office, I try to look at the time Newsweek, and I see us and people, and they are making stars of these teenagers on 16 and pregnant. They've made stars of the family with the 86 kids, and then they're all having kids, and all they wonderful. We're not, and your local news weather guy, when there's a big weather event, doesn't even hint at global. So, maybe the media is partly to blame in keeping stuff down.
I think there's also part of the resistance to being able to talk about that topic, and one reason that, particularly in conservative, it's so conservative is because you have to talk about a shrinking global economy. And so, like, even if you just want to talk about alternative economic systems or how to keep things going with a shrinking economy, they don't want to hear anything about that. And so those two issues are entwined. But I have made a list of the reasons that I thought, like in all these places he visited, what were the primary drivers of population growth. And I had lack of education, territorialism and competition for power and influence, unavailability of birth control, cultural history, people that keep having children because they never even think about it, the previous generations when the population was low, they just keep having them. And then religion.
Yeah.
Did you mention business?
Did I mention one?
Yes, he did mention economics, which is big.
For business profit.
Right,
I didn't-
that is.
You didn't, I didn't dismiss this.
Yeah.
I was really interested to read about the Catholic Church. There's one reason that they are continuing with anti-birth control and anti-abortion because they are stuck with this doctrine of the infallibility of the Pope.
Yeah.
The Pope can't be wrong, so that means the Pope has never been able to be wrong. And at some point, the Church came out against this, and so even though a majority, like 60 to 10, of the leaders in the Catholic Church at the Vatican wanted to accept birth control, the Pope came out against it.
Right, and then he doubled down.
Yes, he
The
did.
the Pope does not speak infallibly all the time.
But he does double down. I'm sorry. Oh my God.
He only speaks infallibly when he says, I'm speaking infallibly. From ex cathedra, from the chair of Peter. And he not only went with the minority opinion, the very small minority opinion of the panel that he created to investigate the concept of contraception and how the church should approach it. But then he doubled down and he spoke infallibly that the church would never accept what they call artificial contraception. It does accept some what it calls natural contraception.
I'd like to bring up the book of Allah and Muslims and also the Old Testament. They're all say be prolific and do it all the time and make more Jews, make more Muslims, make more. And it seems I really don't know a lot about Buddhism, but they seem to be fairly into procreating as well. And I think education, I guess maybe you call it, but I don't know if you call it educational philosophy. It's a really dicey, that is a really dicey part of the argument, I believe.
Mentioning education is what I wanted to kind of emphasize.
Right.
She just brought up. I've got a hypothesis that, which if right, would solve all this without all the controversy that we're about immigration or anything else. And that is that if you just provide education of women around the world and let them have free choice as how many children they want, and provide them with the education about birth control and what are the instruments to do it, I think that would probably solve it. I think Kerala maybe makes that point. You look at a few countries around the world where this has happened, has changed the culture, has changed the birth rate.
The success that Benson brought up very, recently, what happens is everybody's standard of life. Then we're going to have new demands on the planet, new demands on energy.
No, we
So,
agree.
it does make a tremendous amount of difference to educate women, and I can tell you for a fact, when they walk into our clinics, a lot of these women are begging for help.
I'm saying that might be enough as far as population is concerned. You're still going to have the consumption and the wealth issues. But population, I think you could solve with.
It is an American problem. What I would like to bring up that everybody thinks that they need to be middle class. I think that we're insane to try to be middle class. We should make everybody upper lower class, and we have enough for everybody right now. We don't need 3 cars in a new house.
Well, I think the author, or this author of this book makes it.
Oh, good. I have his book, so.
He makes your case too. Isn't that his central case?
I agree with her.
If you educate the women and you're able to empower the women, then it will be solved. You don't have to bother trying. Well, Aubrey and I are old friends.
Yeah.
We do this constantly, so
Yes, we do.
I hear it when I talk.
you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't go to these meetings.
But the book is so comprehensive. It's just, that's one of the marvels of the book. He seems to have thought about every aspect.
Well, I apologize because I did read the book, but I did want to ask, as you were talking about before, what, when you say that the world could sustain 2 billion people, I wanted to ask, at what level of prosperity or technology or whatever you would want to call it? What standard of living?
It's in between what third world countries are living in now and what we're living in here.
So
now.
comfortable agrarian life.
Not really.
No, he describes it as.
I think it's showing up, one we think it's showing up in our country.
He has definitions.
Using Monticello
What
and
is
all
that?
these companies, the reason we kept up with the population growth is because we've used chemicals and we've seen our fat children, so.
In the US, we use about 4, maybe 2 or 3 times that much. In Europe, they're about at that level for their population in terms of the amount of electricity or total energy consumption of their population. So we could live like Europeans, everybody, 2 billion of us.
Easily.
I've heard it described as a Mediterranean economy. Italy, Greece.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Eat a lot of fish.
That helps.
Well, too late for that.
Have lunch with you.
I have a question, because I wasn't able to get to the end, I read about a third of it. Did he get into, okay, so we have the 2 billion and somewhat of an agrarian society. Well, agrarian societies, he did mention need children in order to do the work, which led to the population problem we have now. So did he talk about how to keep it down, keep the population down, while having an agrarian economy? I mean, what kind of things do we need an entirely new social structure where they work as a member in villages?
I didn't get the
agrarian.
I didn't get the agrarian.
I mean, that's that
It's a lower.
No, that's not it.
No, but I think people are going to have to be more sustainable. I don't think we can keep depending on being radiated and fertilized into existence. It's not working. So at least what we eat needs to be run by us.
But he's just talking about pesticide-free and not using nitrogen fertilizers and pesticides. He wasn't necessarily talking about individual neighborhood farms or anything. I mean, he just didn't go into that at all.
Yeah, and I think Eddie was talking about not using them in excess, not using them.
I guess
Not
it's very
any, but, we overuse pesticides, we overuse nitrogen fertilizer, and then it runs off and it creates damage. But if you use it in a targeted way, it is very beneficial.
Yeah.
And he didn't, he's not talking about going back to the agrarian economy.
No, but unfortunately, the jury's not in yet on whether chemicals really give you the kind of substance you need.
2 billion population of 2 billion would allow us to go back to rotation cropping.
Yeah.
You grow your wheat or whatever, and then the next season you grow clover or something that replenishes the nitrogen.
I have a question that came up to me, and I did read the book, I read the whole thing. Congratulations, that's all. I came away with this, and I don't know if this is really what he meant to be saying or not, is that all we're doing to try to bring down our carbon emissions, all we're trying to do is pointless if we don't stop population. It's sort of like just wasting a bunch of stuff, forget it. Yeah, I explained that, which is really discouraging. On the other hand, it really points out, are we kidding ourselves? We're doing valuable work by carbon emissions, all that kind of stuff. It's like, and then the next question is back to that question about why can't we even talk about this? We can general society, we simply cannot talk about it. I think it's that word control, population control. People go, no control, no way, no control is true. And he talks about, he uses connection as a word he used. Population connection, which I don't quite know.
Yeah, I think
He
it's
tried to come up with a different terminology, so we don't call it.
Family planning has a connotation of self-control.
Something, anyway, I just did the rest of you, did the rest of you get the idea that you'll forget it, folks, well,
I believe it's false. Personally, I believe it's false.
You were with Carlin, huh? You heard George Carlin when he last bit?
Population connection is the new title of zero population growth. Mr. Eric and Mr. Eric have changed the title. And they like that as implying or connecting. Well, we're
In
connecting.
the original
Or
book, the original book on the subject I moved with was called Population Bomb.
Yeah.
I didn't quite see it the way you did, because I think he felt like the campaigns needed to be carried out simultaneously, but I think what he was saying was more that the energy that it would take, like people want to think, well, overnight we're going to transition to all renewables and we're going to have photovoltaics and that's just applied, and that it's unrealistic, the energy that it would take to create all that infrastructure and to overnight go to renewable energy, and the energy debt that would take years to amortize that we spent building all this new equipment means that it's not a viable solution, that it needs to be done in conjunction with population.
That's what I felt.
The other thing I get from it is, somebody else said earlier today, either we do it voluntarily or we do it involuntarily. It's like nature is going to kill us off.
Yeah, the last Carlin did anybody see George's last special on HBO? I thought he brought up, it was very great, as usual, with language. He brought up the fact that everybody's worried about the end of the world going to end, everything like that, the world's going to end. He goes, the world's going to be just fine. He goes, it's going to shake the population off like a bunch of fleas. But once he gets rid of us, the world will be just fine.
Oh.
So
The world is not ending.
my next question is then, perhaps what we should be doing is preparing ourselves for what happens when we have billions of people dying.
That's scary.
Does it? Go ahead.
He mentions in the book here that 2/3 of the grain we produce goes to feed goats, cows, chickens, and so long before our population could grow to 25 billion people if we all consume just grain, not meat. So we can. I mean,